It's another day. It's more fake news. I have real news to report. China should not. It's a phony 40 gold medals. The Olympics are over. We won the overall medal count, but we tied with China. Do you realize China swept the ping pong and swept the diving categories?
Yeah,
They got, I think they got a total of like 14 or 13 medals in gold medals in diving and ping pong. They are a one-trick pony of a country. This is a rigged Olympics, and Team USA. First off, Team USA male swimming let us down a little bit. I think we only got one gold medal for male swimming.
True. Not
dominate.
used to that.
The women carried us in most of the things. Women's soccer, women's basketball. Shout out to the men's national team. That was an incredible ending. The Olympics. We really need them every summer to fill this gap, but I felt like we really, really needed it this summer with the craziness of the world politically that's going on to get us ready now for football. And now the Olympics end, and we had our first full weekend of football, but I needed to let everyone know it is fake news. I'm now on the other side of it. I now know the truth. It's fake news, China. Those gold medals, 40. It's all ping pong and diving. It's ridiculous.
It's inflated. Yeah. Inflated stats,
numbers.
Yeah. They're just really zeroing in on those two categories and trying to hammer away. That's all right. Everybody knows the diverse portfolio that is the USA athletic spectrum. So, we're taking care of business in a lot of different areas. And, hey, shout out to Simone Biles, who I know came up short in a couple different categories, but also took home the gold in others. Being in, an Olympic gymnastics athlete at her age, which is really reserved for teens and even 12 to 13-year-olds. It's impressive what she's able to do. So I think that's pretty sweet.
Hatch struggles early on here. Early hatch struggles.
Hey, that's all right. We're powering through here on the Football Lounge with Mark in his new studio for the second straight week. And got to give a shout out because you're in this new studio for a reason. Kind of teased to it last time we were on the airwaves here together. But now it's official. So, I'd like to give a big shout out to, from a former TV guy, now tossing it over to the current TV guy, Mr. Mark Hespin, your latest and greatest TV anchor now in local television over there in Springfield. Congratulations, my friend. You had your first broadcast today. How'd it feel?
I did have my first live broadcast today. It felt great. It's funny. When we started the show, you were sports TV anchor. I was in radio. You've moved on to a career supporting your lovely wife, who's still in TV, but going into the video editing and marketing side of the corporate world. And I have made officially the transition over to television. I'm here in Springfield, Illinois. 2 stations I'm on: WICS News Channel 20 and Fox Illinois. It really is been an incredible transition. They've welcomed me with open arms, giving me this opportunity to make the jump from radio to television. I think the easiest, what's the saying? Like when you're at like, at something and someone goes, "Hey, how are you?" It's like, "Oh, well, if it was any better, I need twins." You know what I mean? Like the easy, fun, like dad saying to be like, never better. Like, just, doing fantastic. I just keep telling people, it's like, well, I guess I have a face for radio and TV, so I'm excited about that, and it's an incredible station, incredible opportunity, and that is why this is all going to be different for me. But truly, if you're just a fan of this show and you don't consume anything else that Dan and I do, we don't blame you at all. But the show will be this now for at least the next couple of years. Me broadcasting here, Dan at home. And so that's why it looks different. And that's why maybe there are times I show up in a suit like I did last week versus I had enough time to change and get showered to get all the gunk out of my hair, as I hate that stuff, and get back into more normal, comfortable football lounge clothing. And so it's exciting. I appreciate all the support from everyone. And if you want to see some news clips, I'm posting them on social media. You know the drill, at Mark Hespin on Twitter and Instagram and all those things.
It was a little nostalgic for me to see you there on the TV anchor set as well. Not for the local TV aspect of it all, although that was certainly there. But, I, for Halloween back in 2011 in college, went as Wesley Mantooth. And here you are the real life Vince Vaughn from Anchorman.
Yeah,
Living it up. I like it. Got the hair looking great and everything. It's beautiful.
It's funny, if you know me, you know that one of my many ticks, if you watch this show, I touch my collar. I know I touch my collar. I can't help it. But I also love to run my hand through my hair. And so it's one of the reasons why I wear a hat.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I wear a hat when we do the show, because it takes away that, right? I can't then just be sitting here messing with my hair. And so I never, ever put product in my hair. Now, every morning I have to put a bunch of product in my hair to get it to look form, and I don't touch it. So it's really nice when I get home now to just get all that out and get back to my normal life. So
beautiful.
It's a change, but it's a welcome change.
Absolutely. Great stuff. And, looking forward to seeing you on the airwaves more and more, visually, not just over the headphones. So yeah, it'd be great stuff. Good stuff. Well, we had a lot happen this past week as well. Mm-hmm. You were in training and getting ready for your first broadcast, and here we are. A lot of these NFL players getting ready for their first NFL action, especially these rookies and all of that. So we're excited to talk to rookie quarterbacks this episode. We had that first episode of Hard Knocks as well. Curious your thoughts on just Caleb Williams and everything Bears. So we'll get to that in just a moment, but just, as always, a little bit of housekeeping here with some news and notes from around the league. A couple injuries of note. Thankfully, nothing too crazy, although unfortunately for Falcons wide receiver Rondale Moore, he will be out for the season with a knee injury. Still less than 25 years old, even though he's in his fourth NFL season, entering his fifth. Pretty crazy stuff there. But unfortunate, the new Falcons wide receiver going to be out for the season with a knee injury. Chiefs recently acquired wide receiver Marquise Hollywood Brown. It was pretty scary, actually. He was hospitalized for what's called a sternoclavicular joint dislocation. That's just the shoulder for us laymen over here. But apparently it was pretty dangerous because it could actually disrupt some blood clots and like some key, or not blood clots, but blood vessels, some very important blood vessels there in the shoulder. And so if he didn't get immediate care, there could have been some serious concerns, kind of similar to what former tight end, for the Bears, Zach Miller.
Yeah, when his knee exploded.
Yeah, and his leg had that was really scary. They had to rush him to the hospital, but all apparently seems to be well, but this will be a few week injury for Hollywood Brown, so it's going to take him a couple weeks to get reacclimated with the Chiefs and get all of that ready for the regular season. His week one availability is currently in question. And then just recently, Malik Neighbors, the number 6 overall pick for the New York Giants, wide receiver.
What is this?
Yeah, it's a minor ankle sprain.
Okay.
They're not thinking it's too significant as of now, but still noteworthy because he was a number 6 overall pick and already dealing with something, and obviously not being able to get those reps currently in practice. I'm guessing this would probably keep him out for this weekend's preseason game, get him ready, maybe hopefully for that preseason game the week after. And then he's got a couple weeks before the regular season. So all seems to be okay on that front. Another thing that just dropped before we went live here today, the Jets edge rusher Hassan Reddick.
I did see this.
They sent a conditional 2026 third round pick to the Eagles to get him this offseason. Obviously, super talented guy. Really came to form his final year with the Cardinals when they kind of moved him to an edge full time. Had a breakout season then, and then another breakout season last year with the Eagles. He has requested a trade from the Jets. So he showed up for his physical and press conference. This is per Adam Schefter. Spoke highly about the organization back when the deal was done, but then there was no new deal, and so now there is a trade request. So he didn't get that contract extension that he was, I guess, expecting to get once they signed him. That didn't happen. Now he's on the market. Very interesting and a high-profile player there that is becoming available for the Jets. Any thoughts on this? I mean, this isn't news that the Jets
Well,
wanted
my
to
first
have
thought is
going into the season.
no. My first thought is this is his last chance to like force a deal, right? I don't think the trade request means he won't play for the Jets. I still think there's a great chance he'll play for the Jets this year. They gave up something to get him. They probably could get a recoup of their pick at least for a Hassan Reddick. But if you're that organization like a Bears that could really use a second pass rusher, right? You want to make sure this guy is, really all together, right? All on the same page. He hasn't been in training camp. For all intents and purposes, he wasn't in mini camps or any of the OTA stuff. It's like, what kind of shape is he in? He's a great player, but he's going to want a deal. That's the problem, is he wants to get a 3-year deal and kind of lock it on up. Not that he's made no money in his career, but he's in that kind of like, you want to pay him for this year, maybe next year, but like, do you really want to pay him for the year after type of, length of his career? And so I think the Jets obviously would love to get something done because he's going to be a crucial part of their need to make a run this year. And that's why they gave up the picks to go get him from Philly anyways. And Philly didn't want to pay him. So that also says something too, right? Like, why did Philly not want to keep you? Was it just because they had other money, other places, or did they sense something that, he wasn't worth maybe the extension, the big contract, were his best days behind him? If you are a team that needs help rushing the quarterback and you're in a win now mode, throwing a pick and then signing him to maybe a 2-year deal, if you could get him just happy with a 2-year high money guaranteed deal, I would be okay with that as a Bears. If all of a sudden I find out the Bears give up, a third or a fourth round and they sign him to a 3-year deal, I don't know if I'd be jumping for joy. I'd be jumping for joy for this year. I just think long-term, it's maybe not the smartest idea for a team to get into a long-term deal with Hassan Reddick. But the news that he's requesting a trade, I personally think it means it's his last-ditch effort. He's trying to embarrass the Jets. This is really embarrassing for the Jets, right? It's not embarrassing for Hassan Reddick. He didn't ask to get traded for the Jets. They traded for him. They bring him in. They won't give him a new deal. And he's like, I'm just not going to show up. Like, then I don't want to be here. So I think this is his last-ditch effort to try to force them to get a deal done. I expect Aaron Rodgers to come out and have some words about this and hopefully put some pressure on his organization to get Hassan Reddick into camp. And so I still fully expect him to be in New York.
Yeah. Same here. If there, was a short list of teams though, that I would say, hey, get on the phones and try and get this guy to come over. It would probably be Cincinnati, to be honest with you.
Since he could use an extra edge rusher.
Yeah.
Even
and
Buffalo,
I don't know how well he
I
fits
don't know
their scheme, but
yeah.
Some players are scheme proof as well. They're just great players.
If you're the Jets, you'd love to send him to the AFC if you're actually going to trade him, because again, you don't want this to come back and really bite you in the butt, because this is a low mark for an otherwise franchise that's really good at setting low marks.
Another player still trying to get his deal done is CeeDee Lamb, and unsurprisingly, Jerry Jones went and was talking about the contract situation with CeeDee Lamb, how he has not yet gotten the contract extension. I believe Jerry Jones talked to the media a little over a week ago. I think coming off of a long vacation or something like that, and was joking with the media like, there's not really much of a sense of urgency here to get a deal done. Of course, that sparked a lot of outrage and reaction, even from CeeDee Lamb himself, who reposted this with just LOL. Obviously not a good look for the Dallas Cowboys, not a good look for Jerry Jones when you're trying to get your star player a deal done. He hasn't walked back the statements. He's kind of softened the stance, talking about how, CeeDee is missed and that they want him to get back out there on the practice field. But, right now the deal's still not done, and CeeDee Lamb very much not willing to go out there and potentially injure himself during practice when he doesn't have this contract extension locked up. So very interesting stuff there from CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys.
There's no one who loves random Dallas Cowboy players more than Jerry Jones. And so that's his second quote, I think today or yesterday, the one where he kind of softened up. He basically in that quote alludes to like, we miss him. But what I meant by that original quote was that we don't miss the what he brings on the field, because we're still competing at such a high level right now in camp. And I love what I'm seeing out of the people who are here, which is just so Jerry Jones, right? He just loves to pump up the guys that he drafted, the guys that he paid for, the guys that he brought in. I truly think CeeDee Lamb is in such a unique case in the spot in the NFL. There is, I don't think, one person you can argue that his team needs him more on his side of the ball more than CeeDee Lamb, because Justin Jefferson even has Jordan Addison. They have Hawkinson. They have a young, improving offensive line. They have Aaron Jones in the backfield. Jamar Chase has obviously T. Higgins. They have a nice tight end, solid offensive line. They obviously have Joe Burrow, you know what I mean, a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. Josh Allen, you could argue, like, none of his guys are stars enough for them to pull this type of stuff. But yeah, there's just no one player. He's their entire weapon group right now. I mean, when you look at their running backs, it's awful.
They have Zeke Elliott back.
When you look at their offensive line, it is solid, but it's certainly not the standard high Cowboys offensive line of Dak's career so far. And then there's no one else. I mean, there's just no one else. And so I give CeeDee credit. Like, he's a guy that deserves the 85 million plus guaranteed wide receiver money. Unlike, I think, a Brandon Ayuk, I think he really does deserve it. And he's making his organization pay. And I think this is a bad look for the Cowboys. And it's a bad look on Jerry Jones in general, because he's put himself into this spot with bad managerial moves. You've left yourself susceptible for your quarterback, your wide receiver, and your star edge rusher all needing to get paid at the same time. Is not a great spot to be in.
No, definitely not. And honestly, if I'm picking any of that grouping, it's CeeDee Lamb that I'm going to pay. And Micah Parsons is fantastic, but I would still pay CeeDee Lamb if I had the choice over Micah Parsons. Ideally both, and then Dak Prescott, of course. Everyone knows our thoughts on that situation. Yeah. So it is what it is. Real quick, we have an update, and I want to share this from Adam Schefter. Okay. Bring this up. Statement from GM Joe Douglas on Hassan Reddick's trade request. We have informed Hassan that we will not trade him, that he is expected to be here with his teammates, and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report. Since the trade discussions back in March, we have been clear, direct, and consistent with our position. Our focus will remain on the guys we have here as we prepare for the regular season. Yeah. Look, I mean, obviously, if you're the Jets, you have to kind of, put your foot down at a certain point and just, make things clear. But ideally, you do this behind the scenes and not out in the open. They're probably upset, as you kind of mentioned, that Hassan has taken this out in the open and tried to make them look foolish, which is fine. But sometimes, man, as an organization, you also just have to bite the bullet and let that happen and still be the bigger man in the room in this instance, right? And so to clap back like this, and it's
Joe Douglas.
Come on.
I think this is a lot of this has Woody Johnson written all over it, that the owner, he's a very impulsive, ears to the ground owner who just can't control himself. You know what I mean? For this guy who's such a wealthy man, he has no control. It's just a lot of shoot from the hip type of stuff from the Jets as always. And it feels like, I bet he was told, you need to release a statement and be strong. And if I were the Jets, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have just let Hassan Reddick. And then when Robert Saleh gets asked about it at a press conference, you just say that you've always said, we expect him to be here. We'd love for him to be here. We traded him from, we want him to be here. And we hope something happens soon. We get Hassan here, but to say we're not going to trade him is just really dumb, because I guarantee that Joe Douglas's phone is blowing up with some people calling, being like, what would it take? Because Hassan Reddick's a good player and he's got a home in multiple destinations. So now you've put yourself in this position where if you do trade him, now you have to walk back your own statement. Like, it's just again, poor decision-making from an impulsive shoot by the hip owner. I can't imagine this was just Joe Douglas firing off this tweet because he wanted to. It doesn't seem
you hope not.
Like something a good GM would do.
Sure. All right, well, let's get into the preseason games because that's what we are here to talk about. By the way, did you see the Guardian helmets being used in the games? Like Jonathan Taylor was a notable one that kind of wore the Guardian helmets out there. It looks they need to do a much better job of putting the logos and the stuff on there. It looked like you had like a a 14-year-old paint the Guardian helmets to try and make it look like a helmet. So they're going to probably have to do a little bit better job of making that look uniform. But look, honestly, I'm all for it. Like if the players, it looks a little funky. It's kind of a big hat thing and whatever. But look, if it's making them safer and they don't feel that it inhibits their play at all, then I'm all for it. I do think that a lot of them are choosing to wear it now to see how does it impact my game at all in a real game atmosphere. And so, look, I mean, we may have to prepare for a couple of years down the road where everybody's wearing Guardian helmets and maybe they're getting better and making them not look as big. But honestly, I don't think it's going to really cut into the look and feel of football as much as maybe it seems to some people.
I argue that a little bit. If in a big playoff moment, the replay is just nothing but Mahomes with this giant padded thing on his head, it's going to look different.
Understand.
And people are going a lot of casuals will be very much like, what is going on? My bet is you'll see dudes wearing this during preseason. And then my bet is no one will really wear it to start the season except for maybe like kick returners or guys who aren't stars who are in positions where they could be in a big collision. And then what you'll also see, though, is if someone gets pulled out of the game because the booth upstairs says, hey, look at that guy for a concussion. If he passes concussion protocol, the trainers might send him out there with that cap on. You know what I mean? Like as a extra precaution, right? Like, hey, he passed. We're going to let him go back into the game, but we will put the Guardian cap on him for the remainder of this game. My guess is you're going to see most of it used. You'll see it used like you see a knee brace used, where it's like, hey, the knee's a little tender today. He's going to wear a knee brace, or quarterbacks with the rib cage,
or coming off the injury and you're coming off of a concussion protocol. Like,
yes, a guy who had a concussion the previous week, but he passed. He's able to play. He's going to wear this the following week. And it doesn't bother me.
I think a lot of linemen will wear it because they are the ones that are doing that head collision every single play. And that if the linemen all do it in terms of a viewing perspective, that shouldn't change too much because we're watching the skill guys for the most part run out in the open field. Absolutely. So I could see that being a way to wean it in. And I think over the years, they will get it to a point where these helmets are just having the same effect as a Guardian helmet would, and to where we don't need them. So all in all, I just thought it was an interesting note.
Kyler Murray wearing one would be the most hilarious.
That would be
because he's already looks tiny with like a giant head.
Yeah.
And like that.
And or on the opposite side, you wouldn't even notice it if Peyton Manning was wearing it. That guy had a massive helmet to begin with.
That's true.
All right, let's talk some rookie quarterbacks getting action in the preseason so far. We'll go with the Panthers and the New England Patriots, who had their preseason game to start things off on Thursday, I believe it was. We saw Joe Milton. We saw Drake May. Not knock your socks off performances from either one of these guys. A lot of people are riding the Joe Milton train right now because he did have the touchdown and he had a nice run as well, and was efficient. I thought, Drake May threw 3 passes in this game. He went 2 for 3. And I do think, we talked with Dakota Randall a couple weeks ago, the reporter for Pro Football Network, who covers the New England Patriots, and talked about how, look, Drake May was not having a great start to camp, but also to temper expectations on what we're supposed to think that this guy is right off the bat in his first NFL season. He is the guy with the raw traits. Now, is he going to be the Josh Allen who turns those raw traits into fantastic ability? We don't have many examples to talk of outside of Josh Allen, so that's kind of hard to say. But at the same time, I think the pendulum's swinging a little bit too far here, where everybody now, it's Joe Milton. He's going to take over.
Yeah.
Guys, Drake May is going to be the number 2 quarterback, if not the starter to begin the season, and likely will be the starter at some point in the season.
Absolutely.
He's the number 3 overall pick. He's going to get every opportunity to be the starter. It would have to be pretty rough and pretty brutal after like year 2 for Joe Milton to be able to take over as the starter for this job. That's my view of this whole thing. And on top of it, he went 2 for 3, 19 yards. Like, he looked fine. I just think, gosh, we're already starting to get the overreactions, which is to be expected from the preseason. But yeah, overall, anything stand out between those 2 rookie quarterbacks from this game at all?
No, I
think Bryce Young. Bryce Young played in this game.
Did he play?
Oh no, he didn't. I'm sorry.
I don't thought
no,
he didn't play.
He got held out. That's yeah, that's my bad.
Yeah, I think you covered 99% of it. I will just say this. The Joe Milton hype train from New England is only a good thing because, again, if a quarterback goes down during the year, if Joe Milton having good preseason team, you could turn that 6th-round pick of Joe Milton into a 4th-rounder because a team gives you a pick because they want a Joe Milton because their veteran goes down and they don't have a young guy, right? Like, so there's that going for it. But I agree with you. There's no way in the foreseeable future, for at least this year, that the Patriots would go to Milton over May. You've invested too much in May. May looked fine. And I think the thing to remember is that, of course, the athletic guys always look better to start, right? They always look better early on because when they don't know what they're looking at, which is 90% of rookies, no matter what position you play, they can just be like, well, I'm a freak. And Joe Milton's a freak. He's the guy who threw the orange. I think he threw an orange like the whole football field, like 100 and something yards. Like he's an insane athlete. So Patriots fans, it's funny to see them struggle through this because they're really in it now. Because when they got Mac Jones, it was very much like, this is it. Just replace Brady. The steam engine goes on. And now that ended so poorly. And this new era has started so shakily. Patriots fans just don't know how to feel and don't know what to do. At least older Patriots fans do. They're like, well, it's the 80s and 90s all over again, where we're really crap and then have like one pop year and then we're really crap for a long time. But young Patriots fans and new Patriots fans, they don't know how to handle this. And so I know exactly how to handle this. Welcome to the scrum. And it's not great and it's brutal, but they'll figure it out. Drake May will start at some point this year and he'll get the majority of the starts, in my opinion, for New England this year.
Yep. Same here. Oh, the majority. I don't know if I would agree with the majority.
I think they're going to be so bad early on.
It'll be close.
I think they're going to be so bad early on. I think they're going to fall behind so badly that by Thanksgiving, about halfway through the year with like 9 games remaining, they can say, all right, throw the kid in. Yeah.
All right, we have the Falcons at the Miami Dolphins. We saw Michael Penix Jr. for the first time NFL action in this game. Goes 9 for 16 with 104 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Looked pretty good. Yeah, and no Kirk Cousins in this game either, which that's to be expected. I don't think we're going to see any Kirk Cousins. Maybe one series the final week, but that's it.
No, I expected Penix to look good too, and that's what is good. Like if you're a Falcons fan, that feels really good, right? He looked polished. He looked like he's competent. He's capable. I still think the thing about it is that ceiling still feels very low, right? It feels like you're watching a guy that his ceiling is Dak, his ceiling is Kirk. But as we've seen in the NFL with Brock Purdy, that can be good enough to get you to a Super Bowl. With Jimmy Garoppolo, that can be good enough to get you to a Super Bowl. But the question is, Falcons fans, do you have the coach and the supporting cast? Right now, they don't. But there's no reason to say that Raheem Morris can't develop into a great coach, and no reason to say that in 2 years from now, when he is starting, that they haven't put the right pieces around him in place to make sure that he's really successful. Rondale Moore injury is a bummer. It's even more imperative, though, for a guy like a Kirk Cousins to try to get some snaps maybe in week 4 of the preseason, that final game, just to have some sort of rhythm to start the season. Because, again, he was supposed to be your wide receiver number 2. You did sign Darnell Mooney, a very good player for the Bears. So it's not like they're devoid of weapons, but you'd love to see Kirk at least get some live reps with this young core of weapons.
Sure.
Because he's new and they're all young, and so it'll be a really interesting mix.
Yep, in agreement there. I see some Baker Mayfield early on in Michael Penix Jr. Which,
I like that.
Fits in that same mold as the Dak and the Kirk Cousins that you were mentioning as well. So, but yeah, I thought all around a decent start for the young man. Let's talk Houston Texans at Pittsburgh Steelers. No rookie quarterbacks in this one, but we did have new quarterback Justin Fields for the Pittsburgh Steelers playing in this game. No Russell Wilson, although he will play this upcoming weekend for Pittsburgh and get some snaps there. So Justin Fields getting more first team reps here in this first game, goes 5 of 6 for 67 yards, and had a brief little scramble there for just a couple yards too. So
fumbles.
All in all, yeah, that was the big thing. And the center, it was not a first time NFL center. He has played center in the past, but we had him as a guard, and he was a backup swing guy that we're trying out as the first team center to begin camp. But Pittsburgh drafted Zach Frazier high in the second round. I imagine he's going to be the starting center by the time week 1 rolls around. And for what it's worth, when he came in the game with Justin and the rest of the quarterbacks, no fumbled snaps occurred there.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah, and Nate Herbig did take responsibility for the snaps. Now, most centers are going to take responsibility. I'm sure it was half on Justin too. So those are things that you want to get cleaned up. That was bad. Overall, though, I thought from a throwing perspective, like he seemed in rhythm. A lot of people were kind of trashing the performance, saying he looked terrible. I think they were really zoned in on those fumbled snaps, which don't get me wrong, that's bad. That's not good. But if it is on the center, and if a new center comes in and plays week 1 and there's no issues there, I think from a throwing perspective, he went 5 or 6. He threw off platform a couple times when he had a rush in his face. And I thought that was really nice to see. I mean, he's got the athleticism and the arm angles to make all the throws. We know that. And I thought that was on display. So it was just good to see him getting rhythm. My biggest takeaway, though, from the game was just seeing the Arthur Smith offense, even though it's a watered-down version because no one's going to tip their hand, already light years ahead. We had some play action, which was great to see, and scheming guys open. It's beautiful to see some actual football being played by this offense.
Dan, it's interesting. So this is why it's important for people, if you are a fan of a team, to seek out different opinions, right? All I've heard since that Steelers game is national stuff. And all I've heard from the Colin Cowards, from, insert name here. It's, Justin Fields, there he goes again, fumbles. That's Justin Fields. You saying that was the first time that I heard, oh, no, wait. No, it was the center. It was on him, and he claimed responsibility for it. I think the hard thing is, it's like, if you've watched Justin in the past 3 years, he has a problem with holding on to the football, like strip sack fumbles all the time, running fumbles. So when you see that, it kind of just like high alert. If it was the center's fault, it was the center's fault. Then just unfortunate for Justin, because again, he's battling that MO already. I would say overall, though, I thought, it looked like a kind of a vintage Justin Fields. When he plays positively, he can really make things happen. I get the sense, and I wanted to ask you this, that Pittsburgh wants Justin Fields to win this job. That the coaching staff,
think so too,
and the players want Justin Fields to win this job and to just start the season with Justin Fields and to just roll with it. Are you getting that same sense? Are the people that you follow closer to it feeling that as well, or is that just, again, me as a fan of Justin and kind of reading between the lines of some of Tomlin's quotes and what the players are saying? It's the vibe I get. Do you get that too?
It's the vibe I'm getting. Yeah, absolutely. I also think there's the complete other side of it, which is just knowing how Mike Tomlin operates. I just think I think Justin has to overcome so much to win the job week 1 that it's almost unrealistic or not even, possible. Like he would have to really just play so lights out that it forces their hand, because Tomlin is such a veteran first guy. I mean, we're talking about a head coach that didn't have Joey Porter Jr. start until I think it was week 4 or 5. When he was instantly the best corner on the team. Like, it was very clear. And we're talking about a team that really didn't have a quality cornerback 1. So it's just he is so dialed into veterans. Now, if Mike Tomlin is, and we've already seen him try and show that he's willing to change how he does things because of how poorly the last 2 years have gone, then maybe he's learned a thing or two, and maybe he is willing to buck that trend as well. But I think coming in, telling Russell he's got the pole position, I think him leaning into veterans and veteran leadership and all of this stuff so much, I do think Russell's still going to have to lose the job rather than Justin winning it. And but I think these next 2 weeks are massive.
And Russell's playing.
He's going to have
is Russell playing in the next 2 weeks?
I believe that is the intention, is for him to play. That's what Tomlin has said. We'll see what practice yields. Hopefully he doesn't tweak anything.
Yeah.
So that's the intention, is to get him reps and get him out there, which maybe, honestly, funny enough, it might lead to more reps for Justin Fields, because I think after Russell gets his, few series, I think they're going to let Justin go like deep into the second half of the game.
Good. They should.
And so he's not going to get, with the first team, but he's going to get more reps overall, I think. And so he'll have an opportunity to still make
embarrass some second and third teamers. Yeah, he'll make some of those guys look foolish because he's just such an athlete. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I know that the feeling is the players absolutely love him. The players like Russell Wilson too, for what it's worth. It seems that like they are enjoying having him around. They feel the vibes and the sense that they get is that this is a totally refreshed approach with new guys. And so I think they like both. But yeah, I think if the players had their way, I think if, maybe even some in the organization had their way, Justin would start week 1. But I'm still hesitant to think that that's going to happen. But hey, this early injury and this caution that they're taking with Russell, it's not been good for Russell. This has been perfect case for Justin Fields to make his case.
Yeah.
And if I think he's doing what he can so far.
And he's literally right now a fumble away, if there was not that fumble, from no one having any complaints on him so far. Like the national media is jumping on that. And it's the only thing right now that's hovering over. And listen, I think in any true quarterback battle, like what you're seeing in Las Vegas, we're not going to talk about them because they don't have a rookie, but they gave AOC a start, and now Gardner's going to get a start. So it's that fairness of like, that's how this works. I'm really surprised by that too, by the way, because me, I've said during the offseason, like I'm high on the Raiders. If Gardner Minshew's not the day one starter, my Raiders prediction is going to drastically change. We might have to save the AFC
Gardner
for
gives
second,
them the best chance,
because I think Gardner Minshew's a much better quarterback. So I'm really surprised by that.
Yeah, same here. All right, let's move on to the Washington Commanders at the New York Jets. No Aaron Rodgers for this one. We are not going to be seeing him in the preseason until week 1, of course. But we had Jaden Daniels and Sam Hartman, the 2 rookie quarterbacks here. A lot of people, and see, this is the interesting thing. Like Jaden Daniels made a nice throw, and he had a nice little scramble there for the touchdown as well. So he looked good early on in this game. But everybody is just like, my God, what a performance by Jaden Daniels. He went 2 for 3.
Yeah.
And he had a rushing touchdown. Like, the guy accounted for about 20 yards of offense and barely played. I think he looked good. I think he's going to be the starter.
Throw. He had the throw, and now the story comes out that he audibled into the throw. So
is that right?
Yeah, that's the story.
Okay.
And the coach confirmed it, that it was something else, and he pretended not to hear the communication and audibled into the throw. So the coach said, I think in a quote today, it was one of those situations like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh my God, that was amazing. Great job. Yeah. So that is what you hang your hat on if you're a Washington Commanders fan, right? Like you're like, oh my God, we didn't get that from the athletes of like a Justin Fields or a Lamar Jackson early on. You never heard those stories. You heard, whoa, they're a freak athlete. Like Jaden Daniels to me falls into the RG3, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields category, right? He's the next in that line of where it's like, start with freak athlete, then add in the quarterbacking, and you say to yourself, oh, well, that's the type of stuff we're not used to hearing from the freak athlete guys. Also, the reports, all I'm hearing is that this kid is a film junkie and he is first guy in, last guy out. Now, you can be a film junkie and it cannot translate. Like, don't just because you're a film junkie doesn't mean that when the pressure's on, you make the right decision under pressure where to go with the football. But you love to hear these things. They're good things to hear. I was impressed with his poise in the very short time that he played. His athleticism popped. The throw was fantastic. So all good signs for our fellow, for our Commanders fans out there. They should be cautiously optimistic, like I think Bears fans should be, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon here.
Yes, absolutely. We will get to the Bears shortly, but before we do, let's talk a little Raiders and Minnesota Vikings, because the Raiders didn't have a rookie quarterback in this deal, but the Minnesota Vikings did. JJ McCarthy showing out 11 for 17, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Also had a couple runs for 18 yards in this game. McCarthy also had a pretty sweet throw down the left sideline that went for a touchdown, a big bomb. And there's a cool mic'd up moment from Justin Jefferson freaking out when he was having an in-game interview at the time.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, we talked about it before the draft, and then, of course, after the draft, that, you know, JJ is going to find himself in one of the better situations you could ask for a rookie quarterback to be in, with Kevin O'Connell as your head coach, with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, and
Aaron Jones, TJ
Hawkinson, you know, some really, really quality players around you, and a really solid offensive line, and one that has been able to rebuild itself. Yeah, I think we're going to see JJ potentially even sooner than we thought. I was under the impression early on that Sam Darnold was going to have success early in this offense, just because he's a talented guy, and Kevin McCarthy can work his magic. But I don't know. I mean, maybe JJ McCarthy is going to be able to push for the job sooner rather than later. Maybe we see him before, you know, that mid-season mark.
I would have said to you that I think that's the wrong take until I saw JJ bounce back from that ugly interception. That was a bad interception on his, like, early on, I think his second drive or first drive, and it was bad. It was ugly. And yet he bounces back, shows his athleticism, throws for 2 touchdowns, leads some scoring drives. You say, oh, if you're Kevin O'Connell and you're that staff, you're saying to yourself after the bad interception, see, this is why we're happy to have him sit the whole year. We'll just start Darnold, and Darnold will be fine. And then you see the kid's moxie a little bit. You see the confidence, and you see him go out there and against, albeit second stringers, a lot of guys who probably aren't even going to make a team on an already not great defense with the Raiders. And you're like, all right, like, okay, this is what you want to see if you're a fan during preseason. Preseason, yes, it is. It doesn't count. It's hype season. It's a lot of vanilla stuff. But in a lot of ways, what Vikings fans got from McCarthy is exactly what you want to see. You want to see, like, all right, he's probably not ready to be the starter right away, because the starter wouldn't have made that bad interception. But I love his moxie. I love his comeback. I'll say this, though. Did it not get the sense to you, Dan, when you watched it, that it felt like JJ physically just feels limited? Like, nice scramble, but arm strength, overall, it feels like we're watching someone who's maybe a little bit more of a running, fluid Jared Goff. I didn't see anything that was like, when you watch Jaden and you watched Caleb, or like Anthony Richardson last year, you see that, like, oh, like,
right. Yeah, he doesn't have tools that completely wow you. I mean,
CJ Stroud on a deep ball, you're like, whoa. It's a lot like Michael Penix, where Penix, you get a little bit more accuracy, a little bit more of like a pinpoint ball, but you get no athleticism. Where McCarthy, you get athleticism, but you get this kind of like a little bit of an odd throwing motion. It's a little Mitch Trubisky-esque with the throwing motion.
I was going to say almost like Mark Sanchez.
Where it's like you feels like he should have more power with the ball, and it's just not there. Every time, even when I watch Trubisky with the Bears playing the Bills, I'm like, again, you big, strong kid, and the ball just never comes out with like the zip and the pop. There's never pop off the hand. Anthony Richardson, pop off the hand. Caleb Williams, we saw pop off the hand. Jane Daniels with that throw, it just popped off his hand. It doesn't feel like that with JJ. I also just think, again, early on, they have Sam Darnold, a lot like Drake May. They have Jacoby Brissett. Like, those two are in spots where it's like, especially JJ, because he's got the weapons when he actually does start. But there's not the pressure to start day one, week one. Michael Penix, same thing. But Michael's a little different, because Michael, it's almost like it feels like there's no chance he plays this year unless there's an injury.
Right.
Like it's just a little different from Michael. But for JJ and for Drake May, it feels like their number will be called at some point in time this year, just when. And the longer you can wait for it, the better for both of them it will be. That's the feeling I get.
Yeah. And I agree. And I don't think JJ doesn't have to have all of those skill sets to succeed in the NFL, right? It's just that those indicators early on are kind of harder to spot a little bit. We need to see a larger sample size for somebody of his maybe limited skill set to see, okay, but is the accuracy, is the decision making, is the poise in the pocket, is that stuff all there, the footwork? And if so, then he can have a successful career like Kirk Cousins has had, or maybe even elevate above that. So time will tell, but I do agree. Yeah, those situations are a little bit different. Let's talk about your Bears, man. I'm excited to talk about this. Was really excited to watch.
Next, and then we get to the Bears, but we'll go Bears.
Let's do it. Caleb Williams in action for the first time. We were all waiting to see it.
Yeah.
A lot of people talking about some great, throws. And hey, anytime it's hard to pick what's the best throw so-and-so made when they threw the ball 7 times in a preseason game. Yeah. I think that's a good indicator that things went pretty well for Caleb Williams and company, even though they didn't get to lead to a touchdown during his drives. I want to toss it to you and ask you what was the best play you saw from him. And then I'll give you thoughts on mine, because it's different from what I think most are saying out there.
Yeah, the best quarterbacking I saw was that first big third down and that throw to DJ Moore. Because that's that's quarterbacking, right? That's what we struggled with Trubisky and Justin Fields. And we struggled with it. We struggled with it in 2 ways, right? The coaching staff believing they had a quarterback who could make that call and then just calling it. It felt like the previous coaching staffs with the quarterback, if you're a Bears fan, you specifically watched them, they would never call that throw. They would never call that route because either A, they don't believe in their quarterback, or if they did call that throw and they did call that route, the quarterback just couldn't make the throw consistently, or they went somewhere else, or they took a sack or something like that. So that was the best quarterbacking. The best play was the moving in the pocket, the crazy little dump off to DeAndre Swift, because that's the moment that you're like, oh, that's Mahomes. Like, that's what Mahomes does, where you are not afraid to be in the pocket until the last possible minute. And then you do whatever you have to do to just get the ball where it needs to go. I mean, it looked like a vintage Patrick Mahomes play. And can I also add, when the Bears signed DeAndre Swift, I'm pretty sure my instant reaction was like, okay, excited, but like, paying a lot of money for running back. He looked fantastic. And
he's explosive.
He looked exponentially more explosive than Khalil Herbert. And that was great to see. So that was great to see. Overall, I think my opinion of Caleb so far was like that's the opinion, right? It's just a big sigh of relief. It wasn't a dud. It wasn't the second coming. So it was way more positive than negative. And that is exactly what you kind of want, right? It tempers expectations a little bit. It also gets a lot of the air out of the room. It's kind of how I feel today. Like, there's a lot of buildup, and you're going to be hosting a TV show for the first time. You're anchoring a TV show. You've never done it before. Good luck. Go do it. And then you do it, and you realize, okay, I made some mistakes, but I got through it, and overall did a pretty good job. You're like, okay, now you put it behind you, and the rest you just can build on it. That's how I feel about the Caleb Williams game. Sigh of relief. Can I also just quickly say, it's also really funny, right? Because we all know this feeling. If you are a person who wants to be in the media, you want to do what we do, right? Where you podcast or whatever it might be. We really do try our best when we're not talking about our teams. I mean, like, I picked the Packers to make the playoffs. We do try our best to be as objective as humanly possible. And I feel that way when I'm talking about, JJ McCarthy. He's a rival. I don't want him to do well. I want JJ McCarthy to be awful. But objectively, from what I saw, okay, I'm going to give him the compliment. Way to bounce back from that horrible interception. That showed a lot of moxie. But I also do have some concerns, right? And then when you talk about your team, there's something inside of me too that just like it's so hard to put the fan down with Caleb right now. It's really hard to put the fan down.
Yeah.
Because this is a franchise a lot like the Commanders. I think Commanders fans can appreciate this too. Like it feels snake bitten. It feels like we've been so snake bitten and just so wrong time, wrong place, or right time, wrong place, or right place, wrong time for 35 plus years now. And for them to feel like it's right time, it's right place, right person, like all three are lining up. If you're getting overhyped right now, I don't blame you. I'm going to let you have it, let you roll with it. And you should feel overall good about Caleb Williams' first debut as a Chicago Bears quarterback.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think you more than deserve to like just have the moment and be in there and enjoy it. In this case, it's a once in a lifetime chance so far to see a true franchise quarterback for your team that you can say with confidence, I think this quarterback will be our quarterback in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's weird to say that when he hasn't played a down in the NFL, but you feel that way. I don't think you felt that way about Justin or Trubisky when they came out. You felt like, all right, I'm just going to hope that they get to be that guy. I see the traits and I want it to be so, but I'm skeptical. There's not as much skepticism with Caleb as much as there is just worry that it won't happen. Right. For some like whatever
reason. Because we're snake bitten.
Yeah. But you know that it can happen. Whereas with Justin and Trubisky, you still weren't sure if it could happen. You weren't sure. And the jury was out.
I think the feeling that a lot of Bears fans are feeling this morning is kind of the opposite of maybe what a Falcons fan is feeling, where a Falcons fan is feeling is like, we have 3 years of Kirk Cousins and then hopefully 3 or 4 years of Michael Penix Jr. on a really affordable contract. Well, probably 3 years if you pick up the option, right? So you're kind of in like a 6-year window where you say, we're not completely overpaying our quarterback position. So, and we know we have the type of guys who are going to need all the help they can get. Where it does feel like Chicago is now officially on the exact route you want to be on. No. You have a talent that is worthy of a $50 million a year contract like these guys are getting, but you're not paying him anything for 3 years. And you have a ton of talent around him. And I think it's just one of those rare combinations that it feels a little bit like when Goff was with the Rams with Sean McVay that year that, remember, because Goff's first year with the Rams was still with Jeff Fisher, and it was bad and it was ugly. He got fired. They moved from St. Louis to Los Angeles. They bring in Sean McVay, and he immediately unlocked everything, and they added a bunch of talent. That's what a lot of teams are feeling. It feels like that's what the Bears have gone through, only the difference is Caleb feels more like a Patrick Mahomes type of prospect than a Jared Goff type of prospect. Where if you are if you're a Vikings fan or a Falcons fan this morning, maybe even a New England Patriots fan, you feel a little bit more like our ceiling is Jared Goff with our quarterback, right? Where if you're a Bears fan, a Commanders fan, you say to yourself this morning, our ceiling is guy is deserving to be in the conversation of the top 6 guys in the league, right? Up there with a Herbert, with a Mahomes, with an Allen, with a I think another very good comp is a good Jalen Hurts, where you're like, why can't this guy play in a Super Bowl if Jalen Hurts played in the Super Bowl? And so it's an exciting feeling because truly, unlike the Commanders, the Bears have a leg up is that their roster is way more built to win right now than Washington. And if Jaden doesn't succeed or struggles in his rookie year, a lot can be put on the fact that, well, I mean, the cupboard is a little more bare in Washington than it is in Chicago. It puts more pressure on Caleb, though, to perform, right? Because you've got Keenan Allen, you've got DJ Moore, and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet and Swift are locked up with you and Rome Odunze for the next 3 years together, right? So like make it work. So it's a lot. I hope he plays second preseason game, the next preseason game, which will be the third for the Bears, but the second game that he'll play in. I hope he plays a full quarter. I'd like to see a full quarter. I'd like to see him in the red zone a little bit more. I would have loved to see the Bears gone for it on fourth down as opposed to kicking those field goals. But I also get like, hey, in the regular season in that situation, you probably would kick the field goal because you're trying to get points on the board early on in the game, win the game. So maybe that's more what they're thinking. Hey, we want to put ourselves in real game scenario as opposed to like, oh, fuck it, this doesn't matter game scenario. Because I think we get that way with the preseason a little bit. Like, fuck it, doesn't matter, just go for it. But that's never how it will be once week one starts. Was week one through, if you're in the Super Bowl, everything matters. So practicing the it doesn't matter situation maybe doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I did want to say one last thing on Caleb Williams. I thought it was extremely impressive that we got to see a sample of him in a variety of different situations, despite having the limited snap count. We saw the rollout, pump fake, throw it downfield, find the open receiver, snap on the ball. We saw the poise in the pocket in a pressure third down situation and rocket it into a small window to your receiver. We saw the scramble up the middle for a first down.
Yep.
And we saw a create when the pocket breaks down within the pocket, an off-platform weird throw, dump it off to DeAndre. So we saw all of that. That's a lot of different situations and circumstances to expect to see. So I feel like for the Bears brass and an evaluation of where he's at standpoint, it can't get much better than that for a first preseason to see as many bits of obstacles and adversities that you could see your quarterback face early on. Outside of I would say like the offensive line held up pretty well. He didn't see like tons of like heavy pressure early on.
And he wasn't ever
scrambled and created.
Yeah, he wasn't ever like deep in the red zone. Like, what are you at first at third and goal?
Right.
Like third and goal situation.
When you got a shortened field to work with, how do you navigate that?
So that's why I hope he plays at least a full quarter to get into that. And I know the argument is, well, if he gets injured, your season's over. I get it, but it's just it also, you're doing him a disservice if you're expecting him to do that productively week 2, week 1, if he never's done it in an in-game situation before. So that's that. We spent a lot of time on Caleb. Caleb's going to be a huge talking point for us this year in the show. I know Nick Wright's already taken the Bears to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I'm not going to go that far. I can guarantee you that. I'm just not going to do it. But I will say, this Bears team has looked like a pretty darn complete football team.
I'll say,
with some really good depth. Some really, really good depth. And I like the Velus Jones move to running back. I think that's a position for him, like turn him into Cordell Patterson. If that's the way he fits and finds a role for a year, I like that. If you want to move on, there's one other rookie we haven't talked about, Bo Nix.
Yeah, well, there were two actually. But we can get to the Broncos.
Did you have you want to talk Spencer Rattler?
I did want to talk Spencer Rattler briefly.
Let's go Spencer Rattler. Go for
Let's do it. Okay, yeah. Spencer Rattler goes 9 for 17, 70 yards and a touchdown.
Run.
Lead the Saints to victory. But it was, talk about situations you want to see your rookie quarterback in. I mean, down late in the fourth quarter, had to navigate, a hurry up type of situation. And he made some really good sideline throws, I thought, to lead his team down and get a field goal to win the game. So overall, I mean, there's a lot of talk about how they are excited there. And I've seen a lot of fans, this is anecdotal, of course, but seeing a lot of Saints fans commenting on things, talking about how they would much rather go 5-12 with Spencer Rattler than go 9-8 with Derek Carr.
Really?
I don't know if I would go that far. I think you would want to go 9-8 because 9-8 could win the NFC South. Folks.
Absolutely.
But I understand the point of like, you want to see what you've got for the future because you're not sure if Derek Carr is going to be around for even 2 more years, let alone, make it all the way this year because of the struggles last year.
Yeah.
But
And his
But
big
yeah,
guaranteed money is like done after this year, right? Like, like you can move on from
I
Derek
think
Carr
so. Yeah, no, I think you're
after
right on
this
that.
year.
Yeah.
You know, Dan, I think so. The reason I didn't think we were going to talk about Spencer Rattler is because I truly think Derek Carr is going to have a nicer bounce back year, right? Like, I think first year in a new situation is really tough. I don't think he was god awful last year. I don't think Derek Carr was like the reason the Saints didn't make the playoffs. He also wasn't they made the playoffs because they didn't make the playoffs. Like he was very average at times. I'll say this though about Spencer Rattler. He definitely is in a unique spot for the rookies to where if things go south, and if they really do go south in the South for the New Orleans Saints, would it shock you if by Thanksgiving the Saints say, fire the coach, interim coach, revamping everything, and Spencer Rattler's going to get half a season to start? No, it wouldn't shock me, but I would say if I was a fan of the Saints, I wouldn't want that because your organization has some nice pieces, and I don't think it needs to go into sell-off mode. No one's running away in the NFC South. Yes, was the Derek Carr. If Derek Carr doesn't have a really good year this year and lead you to a division or the playoffs, will it be a bad decision overall by the organization? Yes, but give him a second year, right? Like
get there when you get there.
Yeah, get there when you get there. I think we all know. I think what Saints fans, if you're hearing that, I think the truth behind that is Saints fans don't like their head coach. And they don't like the prospect that their head coach in a wits battle against a Kyle Shanahan or against Kevin O'Connell. They know they're at a disadvantage. And I think that's the bigger struggle, right? And that's something the Bears fans also have to figure out. It's something the Commanders fans, you have a defensive coach. It's something you have to kind of come to grips with, right? Like, how do you feel when the chips are all on the table and your team's in a big moment and you feel like you have a deficit at coach? I think that's really what Saints fans feel like. And that's maybe why they would argue have a terrible season, start Spencer Rattler. But if I'm starting Spencer Rattler for the whole year, I want to win like 2 games. I don't want to win 5 games. I want to get the first overall pick.
Great offensive lineman next year, top 5.
I don't want Spencer Rattler. I want the number 1 pick. I want to take the quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. If he plays well enough and you're still bad because of other factors, I mean, maybe.
Well, then I would hope he wins 5 games, right? If you're like, no, this kid's got it. He's got pop. Let's, like a Jalen Hurts, then maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Peyton won 5 games his rookie year or 3? No, he won 3-13, I think, his rookie year. So
not good. But that was obviously, again, you have to look back on it. History is, don't rewrite history in the sense that Peyton's was surrounded by nothing. And Peyton, Peyton throughout that rookie year, even with the 27 interceptions, you could see it. You're like, no, he's got it. It's just got to come together.
Yeah. And he was a high draft pick, so there's that too. All right, let's talk Bo Nix. We got a heavy dose of him, 21 pass attempts. He goes 15 for 21 with a touchdown in this game, and also had a couple scrambles for 17 yards. What'd you make of his performance overall against the Colts as they got the win too late in this game?
Listen, he could win the Heisman this year. Bo Nix, it could be his year. He transferred again to some small school in Denver. He's put up some big numbers. I struggle with this because my gut has told me that the Sean Payton in Denver thing just won't work. And I think part of that is Sean Payton's hubris rubs me the wrong way. I think a large part of that too is I think Sean Payton was very, very fortunate to inherit Drew Brees and get Drew Brees away from the Chargers when they moved off of him. And they were a perfect pairing. They kind of needed each other, a young offensive coach and a player about to enter his prime coming off a giant injury and that everyone had written off. And they made a great marriage together for a long time. But I just go back to all of those 7 and 9 years with the Saints. And there was a bunch of them in there where they just didn't perform well. And we blamed this, that, or the other. And none of it ever really stuck to Sean Payton. And last year, for the Denver Broncos there was ugly times. Remember, they lost to, what was that Miami game? 53-0. Like, I mean, there was some really hideous games. And for me to think in 1 year and Bo Nix, they're going to turn it all around. I know I'm not talking about Bo Nix. I'm talking about the larger Broncos in general. It's hard for me to still fathom. And I say all that.
And you lose your all-pro safety, Justin Simmons.
Yes.
Like that's a big loss.
I say all that to preface it in this way. The thing I do think the Bo Nix and Sean Payton have going for them, and the thing I think could be really interesting for them, is everyone on this roster is very much like you got to prove it, right? Like, there's no Jerry Jeudy. There's no there's no DK Metcalf. There's no just like stars. There's no
clear cut, mainstay. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so it's a lot of prove it guys. When you have a lot of prove it guys, a guy like Sean Payton, a motivator, you can get a lot out of those guys, right? And they can overperform. So that to me, it felt like very much Bo Nix will do everything and anything Sean Payton says. And that is a good thing for the Denver Broncos, because it feels like at times last year, that was the killer in Russell and Sean's relationship. Was Sean wants a robot who will just do exactly what he says, and Russell wouldn't do it. And Breeze did it until Breeze was so good that him and Payton then could share the responsibilities. Sean is trying to rebuild the Drew Brees relationship, and Bo Nix is the perfect person to be like, I have no pomp, I have no aura, I have no ego. I will do every single thing that you say. And so he was efficient. It wasn't flashy. It was solid. And if he does that over the course of 17 games this year, maybe the Broncos will finish third in the AFC West.
Exactly. That's the point. That is the overall point, is that
that's still the kicker. It's still Bo Nix versus Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it's like he's the one too. I just have like so many questions about the ceiling, because maybe he has one of the higher floors among the rookie quarterbacks.
He definitely does.
Drake May's got a deep floor potentially from what we've seen. He also could burst through and have a huge ceiling because he has all the athleticism, the tools, all of that.
His
stuff,
ceiling
right?
is Herbert. Yeah.
Right. And so, Bo Nix could go a lot of different ways here. He's got the coach to be able to have success, kind of like what we talked about with JJ McCarthy in Minnesota. But again, that's the thing. They're in such a competitive division, and the Raiders seem to have the right coach and seem to have the right culture and atmosphere for winning. They're waiting on a quarterback for sure, but Gardner Minshew's kind of like the adult in the room that can get them there. I would take the Raiders roster right now absolutely over Denver's roster, to be completely honest, and just their situation in general. And then of course you have Harbaugh with Herbert, already a proven stud at quarterback, and Patrick Mahomes, the greatest. So how are you going to match that and compete with that? That's the hard question. That's what the Steelers have had to face. Like, how are you going to match and compete with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson to overcome your division? They've proven that they can play well against their division foes. And that's why the Steelers have been in that conversation for the playoffs every year, is because they go 4-2, 5-1 in the division every year. I mean, they play well against these guys, even if they can't make a run. Can Denver get to that point where they can play well against Mahomes and Herbert to actually make headway in the division and get to that spot? That's going to be the key. Totally. And so, there's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered from the Bo Nix, Sean Payton marriage right now. But I totally agree with everything you said. He's the guy that Payton needs to be able to actually implement his system. And that's the thing, is I think after this year, if Bo Nix gets a decent number of starts under his belt, Payton's going to really run out of excuses at this point.
Yeah,
because everything finally fit for you here, Payton. Like, you got your guy, you got the poison out of the room. You don't have the excuses that you had from the past, or saying like, oh, Drew Brees got hurt, or the defense was terrible, or whatever. And then last year, oh, well, Russell Wilson just wasn't the right fit, and we had all these issues. Now, what's the excuse going to be? Because you have your yes man, and the rookie quarterback with all the tools. We'll see what they're able to make of it.
Yeah, my final retort to that, I think you nailed so much of it there, is that when Bo Nix hits his ceiling, I don't think his ceiling is Drew Brees. Now,
you're right. Yeah.
it seems
that's a big
crazy,
ceiling
and
to
it
reach
seems
too.
so crazy to me that the Broncos and Sean Payton truly were like, the only way to win in this division is to find a guy who can be our Drew Brees, who can be a top 10 quarterback of all time. So that's the only way to compete in this division. And to think they hit it on the nail with the 6th quarterback taken, number 12 overall, a guy Bo Nix who we've seen in college for years and years and years and years. And yes, he has slowly gotten better and gotten better and gotten better. But to think it's good that Bo Nix will truly become Drew Brees. Can Bo Nix become Dak Prescott? Maybe. His ceiling feels very Dak Prescott. But Dak Prescott, over the next 5 years, even in his prime, because remember, Dak used to run a ton more before the ankle injury. Like, he was way more mobile. And Bo Nix has that mobility. He's got Dak Prescott mobility. To peak Dak Prescott, even with his mobility, is still coming probably at best second in the division 2 out of the next 5 years, third the other 3 times. Like, that's the peak because of this division, which, and I just, like, I get why the Vikings went McCarthy, because there's no one in the division, right, that is Mahomes. Now, Caleb could develop into Mahomes. Jordan Love could develop into Mahomes. And J.J. McCarthy could develop into Mahomes. So they're taking a gamble, right, on the saying it's a kind of the AFC South, right? Trevor was there first, and he was very highly touted, but he hasn't taken over the division yet. So now you look at and you say, well, why can't Will Levis become, you know what I mean, a strong arm like a Justin Herbert, like strong, big, long, like cannon of an arm? Why can't he become the guy in the division? Why can't Anthony Richardson become a more physical Lamar Jackson and win the division? And then Trevor and Stroud are obviously there as well. So it's like, it makes sense to gamble on a young guy there. For them to have gambled on this young guy, where it's not like, oh, we need a 50-50. This is playing roulette, and you put all your chips on one number of the whole roulette wheel, right? Not you split them half on red, half on black, and you just need a 50-50. This is, you put all of the chips on number 12, and you need that ball to land on 12 for you to just win your division. And then if you win your division, did you get by Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, to you know what I mean, Herbert or Mahomes, if you played them in the playoffs again? I think that's still the thing that you and I are both hung up on with Bo Nix. And in 7-8 months from now, we'll know a lot more about the Broncos gamble. Where are they standing on this gamble? Right now, it feels like I'm watching them do this going, that is the dumbest thing you could have done. You could have just tanked this year and route off with Stidham and know that Sean Payton's your coach for years to come, and just invest in Sean Payton without having to overinvest in the quarterback position.
The only defense I'll give, though, as a devil's advocate for that position is that, you know, obviously nobody wants to tank. I don't think Sean Payton's hubris would, you know, feel great about tanking in any situation either. But tanking only guarantees you what? Shadur Sanders, maybe? Like, and that doesn't even guarantee it.
Someone always pops. It may not be Shadur. Joe Burrow. But maybe, we're talking Joe Burrow the year before that, LSU. I mean, he had a pop.
Right. No, you're right. But it's just that's a gamble too, because you'd be gambling on there being a crop of players that are worth taking at that position next year, top 3 or top 4, and maybe there aren't, and maybe Bo Nix would be a next year top 1 or top 2 pick at the quarterback position.
That's valid, and also, but there's also veterans. Like, you could also sign a guy or trade for a guy, like we've seen.
Like Dak Prescott will become available.
Like, I'll be very honest. We'll do.
Well, they can't afford it though. They can't afford a free agent.
We're doing well. Maybe by next year they could, because the Russell contract, really the last impact of it is this year. But I think, you know, we're doing our AFC preview in 2 weeks, and my gut right now is, I truly think for me to be shocked or to admit I was wrong, like hand up I was wrong, it would take the Broncos finishing second in the division maybe not even making the playoffs, but finishing second in the division, I will say hand up, I was wrong, and I'm surprised or pleasantly surprised by Bo Nix this year. And maybe he could truly have a ceiling that's closer to Drew Brees as opposed to Dak Prescott. And I say that confidently because in order for the Broncos to finish second in that division, he will need to have played an incredible, incredible year of football, a CJ Stroud-esque year of football. And if he's able to do that, then I will eat crow. And I will admit that maybe I was wrong. But as of right now, it feels very much like the Broncos are destined for third and could be upset for fourth, depending on the Raiders' culture. They have better weapons. They have a better defense. They have better weapons on defense. Remember, they got the guy from Miami to go opposite of Max Crosby. Like they have a really good defense, and one of those guys, AOC or Gardner, will win the job. I think it's going to be Gardner. I hope it's going to be Gardner for the Raiders fans' sake because I think they could win games. The only thing that makes me think they wouldn't go Gardner is that they realize he's going to help them win too many games. But then why would you have signed Gardner in the first place if you didn't think it's such a weird kind of situation they're in, right? Because they obviously are one of the 3 or 4 teams in the NFL right now that it's damn obvious they don't have an answer at quarterback next year on their roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, very true. All right, well, that was a robust episode.
Good show.
We fit a lot in there. Yeah. Absolutely. Look at that. What a day for you, man. First live broadcast and then coming on here and just
I'm actually talking a lot less now than I was when I was on the radio. In a weird way.
That's true.
In a weird way. But I will say this, shout out to everyone. Thanks for following along. I appreciate the support. If you do want to follow along, I'll post stuff on the socials. I think next week we're doing our NFC picks and records, right?
Yeah. So next 2 weeks will be our full playoff predictions and the picks and all of that stuff. So excited to see kind of what your NFC predictions are compared to mine. We'll have those kind of set in stone. As always, there's the caveat of major injuries happening from then until the regular season, and we will be sure to talk about that on the episode after that. But this is going to be our final, predictions now that we've gotten. We'll have some preseason games underway and the draft, obviously, and all of these camp stories, all that good stuff. So.
I would encourage our listeners, if you want to do the thought experiment with us, what I like to do is I go to ESPN and I print off each week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, right? And I just, with my gut, just go through and circle, win, who's going to win that game, win. And then at the very end, you take each team and you tally up how many wins they had. That'll give you how many losses they had, right? If you circle every game. Because in your brain, like right now, I already know who I think and I want to win the divisions, right? Like based off my projections, everything. And then you do it and you forget some dudes have tough schedules. And you say to yourself, wait a minute. I wanted X team to win about 10 games and to make the playoffs, and I only have them winning 7 games. And then you have to go back and really look and be like, do they really have a path to the playoffs or not? So it's a fun thought experiment. That it's the way I look at it.
Well, look, I want to save you and the listeners a lot of time. If
you just have
Google,
this website. Send that to
Google
me again.
Playoff Predictor.
Send that to me again.
It's the first one that comes up. And you can go through each NFL week of the NFL season and pick who wins the matchup,
year.
right?
Yeah.
And by the end, you'll have everyone's record. And then you can go click on each individual team. Because by the time you're done, you won't be able to factor in the schedule stuff. But then when you're done, you'll be go into each individual team and then say, okay, whoops, I had them winning.
Why do the Giants only have one win? They have to win a game.
Yeah. And so then you can balance things out and decide kind of where you need to tweak things and all of that. But much easier than doing it all by hand. Save yourselves the hassle. But some do prefer the tangible things. So hey, to each his own. Just saying.
That's right. You sent me that last year, and that was a godsend. But it's a fun thing to do because I think we all in our head know who we think we want to win the division. Also, remember, it's an important thing to look at. Every single year, I think it's at least 4 teams that make the playoffs from the previous year don't make the playoffs the next year.
Yeah.
So if you're just in your head going chalk and it looks just like last year's, know that you're probably going to be wrong. Like thinking March Madness style, right? If you go chalk, you're probably going to be wrong at some point.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Very true.
All right, Dan.
All right, that will do it.
Good show
for us here on this edition of the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. You see our handles right there below, but you can also follow the show at FB Lounge Pod. We are part of the For Frequency Sake Podcast Network.
We are.
Go check out all of the great shows at forfantasysakeqc.com. You can also join some fantasy leagues there as well. We got fantasy football drafts coming up too, so check out For Fantasy Sake, the show, because there's a lot of great stuff and content coming up there too. That'll do it for us here today. We'll see you all next time.